In the last lesson, we explored what an OAuth 2 access token is and how it functions. Now let's take a closer look at how these tokens are structured, specifically the formats they come in. The two most common formats in this context are the structured JSON Web Token, JWT, and the unstructured Opaque token. In simple terms, an Opaque token is a random string of characters that does not reveal any information about its contents, while a structured JWT token does. A JWT contains data in a format that's readable and can be decoded. Let's start with the Opaque token. This type of token is essentially a random string of characters and does not reveal any information on its own. Hence, it's called opaque. You cannot look at an opaque token and understand what it represents because it's not readable or decodable by just looking at it. Because an opaque token does not carry any inherent information, the resource server which receives the token does not automatically know whether it is valid or not. This means the resource server requires server-side validation. The resource server must send a request to the authorization server to validate the token and determine its legitimacy. In practice, when a client presents an opaque token to a resource server, the server has to make an additional call to the authorization server to validate the token and retrieve any relevant information. The key advantage of opaque token is their high level of security. Since the token doesn't expose any information directly, it offers a strong protection, especially in scenarios where token exposure is a significant concern. However, a notable drawback of opaque token is the need for constant server-side validation. These requirements can introduce latency and additional overhead, as the resource server must make frequent calls to the authorization server to validate each token, potentially impacting performance in high-traffic scenarios. Now let's move on to the structured JSON Web Token, or JWT for short. A JWT is a structured token format which written in JSON, JavaScript object notation, which means it's not just a random string of characters. Instead, it's a token that actually contains information about the user and the permissions granted. Let's break down the structure of a JSON Web Token JWT. A JWT is composed of three main parts: the header, the payload, and the signature. The header typically contains two pieces of information: the type of token, which is a JWT, and the signing algorithm being used, such as RS-256. The header might also include a key identifier, KID, which is used to select the key was used to sign the token. The payload is the part of the JWT that contains the claims. Claims are statements about an entity, typically the user, and additional metadata. For example, in this payload we have the issuer of the token indicating who issued it, like the URL of the authorization server that issued the token, and the subject of the token, usually a user ID, audience, the audience for whom the token is intended, often specific API, and the expiration time indicating when the token should no longer be accepted. Times in JWT tokens are usually in numeric data formats. Issued at, the time when the token was issued, and JWT ID, a unique identifier for the token. Authorized party, the party or OAuth 2 client to which the token was issued. Scope, the permissions, resources, actions associated with the token, like orders read. Roles, the roles assigned to the user, for example an Opaque role in a hierarchical organization such as a user or admin. Signature, the signature verifies the authenticity of the token and prevents its alteration. It ensures that the information within the token has not been tampered with or changed. In other words, the signature validates the authenticity of the data, confirming that the token was indeed issued by the proper authority and that its content are trustworthy. The information contained within the JWT is base 64 encoded. So while you can easily decode it and read the contents, it's not encrypted by default. This means that anyone who gets hold of the token can see what is inside. So it's important to ensure that sensitive information is not exposed in the token unless it's probably encrypted. Here is an example of decoded JWT token. It consists of three parts: the decoded header in pink, the decoded payload in purple, and the signature in cyan, that can be validated locally by the resource server. These three parts are concatenated by periods. Because the JWT includes essential token validation details such as the expiration time and a signature, along with the key information in the header, the resource server can validate the token locally without needing to send validation requests to the authorization server. This local validation can make the process more efficient. Self-contained data. Unlike opaque tokens, JWTs carry the information they need to operate within the token itself. This includes details like the user's identity, the permissions granted, and the token's expiration time. You can decide which information to include based on your security requirements. For example, you can include details like an employee's role, an ID, but omit personal data. However, one downside is that if the token is not probably encrypted, sensitive data could be exposed. Therefore, while JWTs offer convenience, they require carefully handling to maintain security.